Hi faculty members, this is Jody Welsh, and the purpose of today's tutorial is to show you how to evaluate an assignment on Taskstream. So I'm going to go to the Taskstream webpage and I'm going to log in with my instructor account, and this will allow me to see folios that I have been enrolled in as an instructor. So most of you, when you come to this page, you're going to see a couple of these different DRF programs. Some of those are our common assessments, and then you may also see DRF programs that are specific to the programs in which you teach. One thing I want to bring your attention to up at the top are these tabs. Author allows you to see Taskstream from your student's view, and that's really helpful in terms of understanding how they submit. Reviewer allows you to see it from the reviewer perspective, and so most of you have the ability to review students' work that doesn't involve a rubric or some kind of evaluation. But today we're going to focus on evaluator. And the way I usually like to do this when I have to evaluate some assignments that have been submitted to Taskstream is to go through the evaluator button and to go down through my DRF folio for that semester. So I teach in Phase 2 Block 2 this semester, so I'm going to click here, and this is going to take me to the next screen where I can look at all of my students that are in this particular course, or I can search by name. One thing to be aware of in the common assessment folios is that when you go into those, you're going to see lots and lots and lots and lots of students, lots of names, because all of our students in all programs are currently in those folios. But you want to make sure that you are entering information for your students that are only in your class or are completing those assignments for you. Another thing I want to point out over here are some links, and one of the things that we can use for that DRF setup, it allows you to see the rubrics that are associated with the different courses and different programs that you might be teaching in. And so you can always use this little view rubric button to that allows you to see the rubric for different assignments. So what we're going to do is I have submitted an assignment to myself, so I'm going to go up here and I'm going to put my name in. So that it'll just show my information. But typically you would see all of the students that have either been enrolled or have enrolled themselves in the different folios. And remember, they have to have an account in order to submit assignments. The other thing to be aware of is if you don't see a program that you know you're supposed to be in on your entry screen, then you'd want to you can let your program coordinator know, and you can also let Jen Delaney know, so we can make sure that you're in the right place. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and search on myself, but typically what I would do is just open up my class, which is right here, Read 420. And I also want to show you a couple things down here. Sometimes you can look at everyone that's in those particular courses. Sometimes you might want to look at just individuals. And also something that's important is if you're going back and looking at old data, you want to make sure that you check any time period, because it sometimes will only show you things that are happening within the last 6 months. The other important button down here is the inactive subscribers. So if we have old data that we're trying to look at, but students have graduated, you want to make sure you click this little button here to allow those students to show up on your screen. But anyway, so I'm going to go up here. I've selected myself, and so you can see it's selected individual, and then right now I've submitted work for my course Read 420. So I'll go down here and click on the continue button. All right, and in my class I have 2 assignments that I'm collecting in Taskstream. We're going to focus today on the case summary assignment. But you also can see that in another assignment I have this evaluate button with this little red resubmitted sign. And so that means that my instructor has reviewed my assignment for this particular item and has sent it back to me for me to make some changes. Up at the top you'll see the legend, and this is really helpful in trying to figure out what's happening with different assignments. So if you see the hourglass, that means that the student has uploaded their assignment to Taskstream in that particular assignment area, but they have not submitted it. And so they have to go back through and hit that submit button so that it will be sent off and can be opened as an evaluation. Here's the submit sign. If it's something that you have sent back to them, and they will see the needs revision, and if they've made the revisions and they send it back to you, then you'll see that resubmitted. If you're in the middle of evaluating something, you'll see that little clock. And then we have a couple options at the end. We can evaluate something and save it and then send it to the authors later. Or we can evaluate something and then send it back to the students or the authors right away. So we'll look at where that happens in your evaluation. All right, so I'm going to go over here to this assignment, the case summary, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the Evaluate button to open the assignment. Now, if you see the words work not submitted, that means that the student has not sent anything to you. So that might mean that you have to go to that student or email them and ask them to please submit their assignment. But once you see that Evaluate button, that means that they've submitted it. We also have situations where students are not submitting anything, and so that Evaluate button will show up automatically. So like in the intern performance rating form or in the dispositions evaluation, that all happens at the field experience level, we're having supervisors enter data into those particular assignments, and so they already have that Evaluate button. That's called a non-submission. But we also have situations where students are submitting assignments. So I've submitted the case summary to myself. I'm going to go ahead and click the Evaluate button. And on the next screen, what you'll see is you're going to see some options here, and you're going to see the actual attachment that the student has sent me. Now, this could be a document. It could be a lesson plan from Taskstream. It could be something else that lives in Taskstream. It could be a folio. But there will be something here if the student has submitted something. I'm going to use these buttons over here. If I'm ready to evaluate the student's work, I'm going to click that green button. If I decide they told me this is the wrong assignment, I can send it back to them right away, or I also can cancel and evaluate this later. So at any time I can cancel, and so that will allow me to go back later, and I'll still see that yellow Evaluate button. But I'm ready to evaluate, so I'm going to go ahead and click the Evaluate Score Work button. And now you'll see two windows that open up. On this side we have the preview window, which actually again shows me the attachment that the student sent. I can also access the directions they had and the rubric that they were given for this assignment. But more importantly, over here is the rubric itself. And so this allows me to see the rubric and to put in the scores. Typically what I would do is open the student's document so that I can read their work, and then as I'm reading I can go through and figure out and fill out their particular rubric. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see it better. And then what we'll do is we'll walk through the rubric. So if you scroll down, you can see here's the name of the assignment. I can go to the rubric itself, and here I have the different levels of performance that I expected with the criteria on the left. For each item, what I usually do is I always will try to give the students comments, and so I can type those comments in this box. And then I can identify the score using the drop-down menu, whether it's an ineffective, developing, effective, or highly effective. The other thing that's kind of nice is that I can also go up here and click, and that will automatically give me the score. If I've written something here and I think I might not finish this evaluation, I might save the draft for this particular area. But I can continue to go on through to evaluate the different levels of performance that I'm seeing in that assignment. And I usually do mine all electronic. If you are evaluating a student's work or their evaluation results from paper, like an internship form, then you would just be, use their form and look at that as you enter the scores. So I'll go through and mark all of these, and then I usually get down to the bottom. I like to give the students overall comments if it's an assignment, and I can also see here that the final score has been computed. So I have a score out of the possible in this little score area. And then I have some decisions to make once I'm finished evaluating. So let's say the work was not up to par and I want the student to do some revision. So I could click on this Send Back to Revision button. And when your program coordinator or when Jen Delaney has set up these elements, they might also give you the option for resubmission. And so it can be set up so that the student can access their existing assignment while they make those changes. And I usually like to have that available, so I'll usually make sure that yes is clicked there. So if I send it back to them, what that means is they're gonna get an email. It's also going to go back into their Taskstream to show that they now have the option to reopen this assignment and to make some changes and then to submit it again. It's important that if they have the option for resubmission, that they have to send it back to you. Only your program coordinator can go in and actually finish up that evaluation if the student never sends back an assignment. So it's important to have them do that. And what's nice is when you go in to do a revision, it can actually copy the existing rubric with all the comments that you gave them initially, and then you can just add to that. And that's usually what I do, and I'll also sometimes add and change the numbers on the scores, but also then add more comments to what was already there. It gives me a nice record of what we did. So I might send things back to revision. And then the other option is if I want to make this a final evaluation, but I want to give it to the student later. And sometimes I'll do that after I've scored everything, then I will release everything back to them. So I can click this, but I usually can't go back in and make any changes to the evaluation if I click and make it a final. The last option is make that evaluation a final and release it back to the author right away. And so they'll get an email. You can also unclick this if you don't really want them to get the email. And then that way they will get information and they'll be able to see the rubric with the comments that you've provided. If I don't want to do any of these things, I can always go down here and save the draft. And then I'll be able to go back in and make changes later. And sometimes that might be a good idea as well. So what I'm going to do now that I have gone through and scored this, I'm going to go through, I think I'm okay with this, the score I gave myself. So I'm going to record that as final. And then I'm going to submit that evaluation back to myself. Okay, so then what I'll see here is, in this area for case summary is, okay, I have a score, 18 out of 24. I can go in and view that particular evaluation. And it's been sent back to the author, so I really can't go in and make any changes, but I can print it, I can save it as a PDF, I can do some exporting over here, so I have some different ways that I can access it once I've sent it back to them. But you can't make any changes at this point. So if I go back to the grid, okay, there, and you can see the date that I released it back to the student. And here's that legend. If you see that red check, that means, okay, it's gone back to the student. If I saw this one, then I know, well, I still have to release it back to the student at another time. Okay. And then if I did have anything I needed to release, I could always click on this button here, although they've all been done, and release everything back to them. One thing I also wanted to show you is these tabs up here back in the evaluation. I can look at I can go back to their work. If I've had any comments with them, if they sent me something to be reviewed before it was evaluated, I might have some comments. And then also I can look at the history, the evaluation history. So I can see when the assignment was submitted, what day and time. I can also see that the student canceled their submission, then they submitted it again. And now here I come in with the evaluation and I canceled it and started. So I did a couple different things. But then you can see that once it's been evaluated and that evaluation has been released, I can go in and see another way to see the full evaluation report. And then I can always click back to that evaluation grid when I'm finished. So I hope this has been helpful and will allow you to review and score your students' work this semester. And if you have any questions with Taskstream, feel free to see myself or Jen Delaney, and good luck on your evaluations.